Welcome to data processing class for SS2. I am Mr. Chukwuma C. The topic we are going to consider today is database security. Database security. In your SS1, you've discussed what database is. Database. Today we are looking at database security. So by the end of this lesson, you are expected to be able to define data security or database security, state the importance of data security, outline at least 3 security risks to database systems, and list and explain at least 4 database security measures. Let's look at the definition of data security. Database security and data security are used interchangeably. But when you talk about data security, it refers to every measure that is taken to ensure that data stored in your computer, in your database, on the network, and in your storage devices are protected from attack. Now, when you talk about database security, it refers to various measures taken to ensure that databases are protected from internal and external threats. These threats could be from programs, that is viruses. It could be from humans. It includes protecting the database itself, the data it contains, the DBMS. When we talk about DBMS, we talk about database management systems and other applications that access it. It can also be defined as a range of security controls designed to protect the database and the DBMS. So every measure that is put in place to make sure that your database is protected from threats, from unauthorized users to have access to them, you are simply applying database security. On the side of data, any measure that you have taken to make sure that your data is either data stored in your computer, stored in your phone, stored in a network, that this data is not accessed by people who are not authorized to do so, you are simply applying data security. Sometimes we do it in our phone for one reason or the other. We try to password, we try to use these patterns and all that. All those measures are geared towards protecting your data. Okay? Now, why do you think data security is important? These are some of the reasons why data security is important. Firstly, is to secure your data. It secures your data. Okay? Makes your data safe. It makes your database safe. 2, it helps to guard against compromise of your database. Because when unauthorized persons have access to your database might be compromised. So, in order not to allow your database to be compromised, data security or database security is enforced. Thirdly, to ward against identity theft. Some people steal people's identity and use it to do things that may not be favorable to the main person who is involved. So people can steal your identity from your database and use it for criminal purposes, which can dent your image. So one of the reasons why data is secured or why data security is important is to ward against identity theft. The next one is database security can also help one or an organization to wage war against other security threats, such as excessive privileges. When we talk about excessive privileges, do you know that somebody might be an authorized person to use a database, but there are certain areas of the database that you are not expected to access? When you are given the permission or the access or that privilege to access a database and you go beyond what you expected to do with database, that means you are posing a risk to the database. So another one is privilege abuse. Privilege abuse. Some people, even though they are authorized persons, when they access a particular resource, be it database or even a computer system, instead of doing what they are supposed to do, they will intentionally do something that will not be good to that system. Okay? Another is backup exposure. When backup files are exposed, it is not good. And some other reasons. These are reasons why data security is important. Now the next thing we look at here is security risks to database systems. What are the security risks to database systems? Number one, unauthorized or unintended activity or misuse by authorized database user or by unauthorized users or hackers. Somebody might be an authorized user, but this person intentionally or unintentionally will misuse the database. And at that time, it will become a risk to the database. Maybe deleting files that you're not supposed to delete, or storing files that you're not supposed to store. Unauthorized persons also, or hackers, may have access to the database. It also becomes a risk. Now, number two, malware infections, which can lead to unauthorized access, leakage of personal data, deletion of data programs, even denial of authorized access, etc. Now let me explain. When we talk about malware here, we talk about malicious software like virus, worms, Trojan horses, and some other malicious programs. So these programs, when they attack your database, they may make the database to be vulnerable, such that information might leak. Someone's personal data might leak. They can delete data programs. They can even cause an authorized person to be denied access. That is a risk to database. Now, number three, design flaws and programming errors. Remember that error in a program is called bug. errors in a program are called bugs. So when somebody asks you to explain what a bug is, you simply tell that person that a bug is an error in a program. So design flaws and programming errors may also cause various security vulnerabilities. So when there is an error in programming of that database, it may cause a problem to the database. When there are some design flaws, when there are some loopholes in the design of such database, it may cause a serious risk to that database. Number 4, physical damage to database servers. Physical damage here could be caused by fire, it could be caused by flood, or even thieves that will vandalize systems, it could be caused by equipment failures, it could be caused by liquid spills, etc. Anything that will damage the computer system or the database is a physical damage to database server. The next one is data loss caused by entering of invalid data or commands. Sometimes when one enters data that is not valid or command that is not valid, it may cause another problem. So it's a threat, is a risk that database system can be faced with. Now, let's look at data security measures. Data security measures, or say some security control measures. Now, one of the security control measures is access control. Access control here simply means selective restriction of access to a database. When you have a database, for example, assuming in your home right there now, you have a database in your home where you store information about your family members, about your family. And you would not want any other person outside your family to have access to it. Now, when you are registering users that will have access to the database, you restrict people who are not registered, who are not members of your family, to access your database. You are selecting people that will have access to that database. So it's selective restriction of access to a database. Now, the permission to access a database resource is called authorization. When people are restricted and some people are selected to access the database, when such person is given a permission to access the database resource, is called authorization. It's different from authentication, which is another security measure. Authentication is the process of verifying the identity of a user before access is granted to that user. Now, I've seen a place where people gathered, they want to watch a live show. Now, before you are allowed to go in there, you will be checked. They will check your wrist because they have a stamp at the other side that they will append on your wrist. So the people at the door will check. If they see that, access will be given to you. You'll be allowed in. You see, they are verifying if you are supposed to be there. Now let me give you another example. Sometimes in some of the online accounts that you have, there are some times that you want to open them, you'll be asked to enter your name. You'll be asked to enter maybe a phone number for them to ascertain that you are that person, that you are the owner of that account. They may ask you to send a phone number so that they will send the code to the phone for you now to enter the code again for them to ascertain that you are the authentic person that should be given access to that database resource. Okay? So, in authentication, the user's identity is verified. And once the user's identity is verified, access is granted to that user. You get that? But here, authorization is the permission to access a database resource. But authentication is the verification of the user's identity before access is granted to that user. So get the two. They are two different things. Now the next security measure is backups. Backups. The process of storing a copy of the database file in another location, probably storage device, to enable data recovery after data loss. Now, sometimes we even do this on our own. You may have important file in your computer system. You may decide to copy that file in your flash or in a CD-ROM or any other storage device. Some people will even have external hard disk so that all the important files and programs in their computer system, they will store it in the hard disk, external hard disk, so that if the system fails, it will not be a problem. From the hard disk, they will now recover their files. You see to that. So in database, backups is also adopted as a security control measure. The next one is encryption. Encryption. Encryption is a process of converting data, that is plain text, into a secret code known as ciphertext that can only be interpreted by authorized users. So in this case, the plain text is converted to a secret code that is only an authorized person can interpret, and probably, if need be, convert it back to plain text. You see to that. So it's a security control measure. The next one is auditing. Auditing. This is the process of observing a database in order to ascertain the actions of database users, just like I've mentioned before. The administrator of that database will be auditing, will be observing every action that every database user performs, so that he or she will know when you are going out of your region, where you are not supposed to go to, the location you are not supposed to access, so that he will be able to stop you. Now, another one is integrity controls. This is the maintenance and the assurance of the accuracy and consistency of data. It ensures data is recorded exactly as intended. When data is not recorded as intended, it makes nonsense of that database. The integrity of the database will be lost. So, integrity controls helps to ensure that data is recorded as intended. Okay? Alright. Another one is application security. This is a measure taken to improve security of an application. Some of us even do that. Even in your own little device, sometimes you password your phone. When you think that people around you may be getting used to the password, you change it. Some other times, you may even go using the pattern type. When you think someone has observed what you do, or the way you open your phone, you change it. So those steps that an administrator of a database takes in order to improve the security of an application is called application security. Okay, now let's look at database administrator. This is database administrator. Who is a database administrator? We are looking at his roles. He's an individual who uses specialized software to store and organize data. I am explaining now. Database administrator is an individual who uses specialized software to store and organize data. That is the summary of the job of a database administrator. Let's look at this. Number one, installing and upgrading the database server and application tools. It is the duty of a database administrator to install, to upgrade the database server whenever he or she thinks that should be done, and every other application too. No other person is authorized to do that. Let me give you an example. In some of your systems, either your laptop or your desktop, if you put administrative password, you discover that it is only you that will be able to make certain changes in that computer system and no other person. Okay? Now, number two, training database users in secure access procedures. Now, if you are a staff in an organization where there is a database, whenever you come there, especially as a new staff or a new user, it is the job of the database administrator to educate you on various secure access procedures that you go through, that you follow, in order to access the database. Number three, monitoring and reviewing violations of database security procedures. So he or she, the database administrator, monitors and reviews violations of database security procedures. So this will now enable him or her to know how he or she will now go about the security of that database in the next step. Now, number four, installing and managing software for database security analysis. So it is his duty to install and manage software for database security analysis. Number five, encrypting data transmissions and erecting hardware and software firewalls. So the database administrator encrypts data. Remember what we said encryption is all about. When you try to convert plain text into a secret code that is called ciphertext that can be understood by only authorized users. So the database administrator encrypt data transmissions and erect hardware and software firewalls. When we talk about firewalls, we're talking about hardware or software or combination of hardware and software that prevents unauthorized access into a database or a private network. Okay? Now, that's for the rule. Number six, protection of data against accidental or intentional data loss or destruction. The database administrator has the sole role or function of protecting data against accidental or intentional data loss, because some people intentionally will want to delete some files to see what the effect will look like, or destroy some files. So the database administrator tries to protect such acts. Number seven, planning for backup and recovery of database information. So he is always there to plan for backups and how to recover database information anytime there is data loss. Managing data integrity. The database administrator also manages data integrity, making sure that no data is tampered with in that database. Number 9, controlling and monitoring user access to the database. So it's the role of the database administrator to control how users access the database, monitor how users access the database. He monitors, he controls how the users do this, because some people will still want to go beyond their limit. Number 10, he also has the sole duty of enrolling users and maintaining system security. Database administrator enroll users, and he is also responsible for maintaining system security. He is the one that will assign a user into becoming part of that database. He is also the one that will try to maintain the security of that system, to see that such system or database is not tampered with. So far we have looked at the definition of database security. We have also looked at why data security is important. We have looked at security risks to database systems. We have looked at data security measures or data security control measures. We mentioned access control, we mentioned authentication, we mentioned backups, we mentioned encryption, auditing, integrity controls, application security. Now we also looked at the roles of a database administrator. Who a database administrator is, the functions or the roles expected of a database administrator. Okay, so in conclusion, I have some work here for you to do. Just read and tell me what database security is. You state 2 importance of data security. Database security, you outline 3 security risks to database. You list 4 database security control measures and explain any 2 of them. Thank you for your patience listening to me. I wish you good luck. Goodbye.